We've got ourselves another hit in the rear collision from one of my viewers, and I have the full confirmed outcome. I'll also need to explain how the claim works with there being a third vehicle involved in this collision and how that affects the settlements. We'll take a look at the detail of that in just a moment, but first let's sort out hitting the rear liability first so that it's super clear for everybody. Of course, if you've seen my recent videos, you already know that the vehicle that collides with another vehicle's rear end is usually always at fault because they will most likely be the negligent party. There's no ifs, buts or maybes about this. It doesn't matter if it's a stationary vehicle, a moving vehicle with a gradual stop, or even a full stomp on the brakes emergency stop. If you collide with the rear of that vehicle, you are too close, you're negligent, and you will be found at fault. You can also forget the 2-second rule if you're somebody that needs more thinking time. For many drivers out there, you should probably consider it a 4 to 6-second rule instead. The 2-second rule analogy comes from the average driving perception response time, which is how you measure people's reactions to sudden events on the roads. The average time of 2 seconds is 1 second to acknowledge a hazard, 1 second to apply avoiding action like hitting the brakes, and then you add your stopping time on top of that. But if you need more than a second to acknowledge a hazard, and many seemingly do, then you need a far greater gap between yourself and the car in front. What is also evident is that most drivers cannot correctly assess what a 2-second gap looks like or how far it takes for a vehicle to stop. You can see this when you're on the motorway and you're in a check distance zone. You will always see cars entering that check distance zone hunched up together. They then suddenly create sizable gaps between themselves and the car in front because they have the visual aid to show them where they need to be and to have an actual 2-second gap. Pointless, of course, to bungalow Brits who will then, as soon as they're out of that zone, bunch back up together with unsafe braking distances between themselves and the car in front. When it comes to rear-end collisions, it usually doesn't matter the reason that the vehicle stops, whether it to be to avoid a collision, to pull up at the end of traffic, a driver to a new automatic vehicle accidentally left foot brakes, they get their footwear stuck accidentally and hit the brake, or even if a spider crawls across their dashboard and they panic stop. If you hit the rear of them, you're most likely going to be found at fault. There are some situations where that can change. If there was intent to stop needlessly to road rage, induce a collision, or to stop needlessly for a small animal and you can prove it, or a vehicle swerves into the path of a vehicle reducing its safe braking distance and then puts the brakes on itself. For those collisions, you will need evidence of what you're alleging, and in the case of a situation with intent, there is still a good chance that liability could still be split between both parties. Now, if you watch any hit in the rear collision, you will often note that most people do not follow with a safe braking distance. You'll also see that on nearly every car journey that you make because everybody seems to be in a rush and everyone seems to be close to the car in front. Anyway, now that we've got liability out of the way, let's take a look at this collision. Not sure what the driver of this Ford Ka was up to. It looks like further back they moved into the near side lane. They then appear to pass another vehicle on the left and steamroll at speed into my viewer's rear end. Why the Ford Ka didn't slow down, we don't know. I'm not 100% sure from this camera, but it might look like that they weren't even looking forward at the time of the collision. Now, in terms of how liability works here, with there being a third car involved, initially there was a dispute about the order of which vehicle hit who in what order. This was likely the driver of the Ford Ka trying to reduce their liability by saying that my viewer hit the rear of the Tesla first. Obviously the dashcam footage disproved this, so the liability dispute didn't stand upon reviewing that footage. But if that dispute did stand, what would likely happen is this. My viewer's insurer would settle the damages to the insurer of the Tesla to remove them from the liability dispute economically. They would then take the Tesla driver's claim costs, add them to my viewer's claim costs and submit one large claim against the insurer of the rear vehicle. Thankfully in this case, with the dashcam footage, the rear driver's insurer ended up admitting liability for all damages and they paid out to both the Tesla's insurer and my viewer's insurer. So that's hitting the rear liability clarified and the confirmed outcome from this collision clarified also. Lovely jubbly, sound as a pound.